Welcome back to OOTP, which if you want me to say it as one word, fine, I will. OOTP. It's the best I could do. We still have a job. This is the 2035-36 offseason, and guess what? We still have a job, but we have a lot of decisions to make, and we're going to be without the help of someone who has helped us make decisions. That is Scouting Director Mike Holtz, who has decided to retire 1 year early before his deal ran out. So we need to hire a scout on top of the other personnel that have also retired. You can see pretty much everyone else is leaving too. So we're going to have all new staff this year, and we just need to make sure that we don't run into situations where we're trading for players we don't have the full good scouting report on. John Fisher is rather unhappy with our performance in pretty much every goal, and as a result, we only got a 1 year deal, and this feels very much like, you better win the World Series or you're fired. He will give us a $162 million budget to do it. While we wait for our all-new staff to be hired, here's how we're going to set up the player development lab. We're going to have Cam Meyer, who is possibly a future starting outfielder for us starting next season. He's going to work on improving his gap power, which is good. We want to go from good to great in terms of that. Pitcher strength and conditioning, we all know why. We want to keep him healthy. Great pitcher, we want to keep him healthy. Fragile, though. David Luvano going to work on increasing velocity. He still has a lot of stuff potential to grow, although he did strike out 138 batters in 143 innings last year. Bustillos bat speed, going to need to see the power if I can really believe in him as a guy for us. He's possibly a guy we could look to trade just high in his prospect dummy. He's just a weird, I don't know, 70 BABIP, like that's the appeal here, and he's 24, and he's, he's 40, 45, 50 everywhere. He could be just a good trade piece right now. Rayto Hill is a prospect for us. We're going to have him working on, I believe, his control. That's probably what's stopping him from really shooting up through the minor leagues at a young age. And then Steve DeBona going to work on the two-strike approach, aka the avoid Ks. Gone ahead and hired out a new staff, but the thing I really need to get across to you all this offseason is that we owe a lot of people a lot of money. Negative $51 million budget space right now. That is assuming a few things. That is assuming first and foremost that we tender a contract to everyone who is due one in arbitration, which is simply not going to happen. There's a lot of money to be freed up via the arbitration process, either by trading or non-tendering, so there is some potential there. We are probably going to, free up the Chris Baker contract, unfortunately, I'm very sad to say. And the goal here is just to get that budget space in the green. It's not going to be easy. We're going to have to make some tough decisions. Let's go do it. Here is the arbitration screen. We're already going to go ahead and non-tender Salcedo, Southard, and Pete Barker for sure. Those guys have, pitched some innings for us over the years, but we can't afford to pay them arbitration salaries. And that's kind of how it works when you're the Moneyball age. You pick your spots, you extend your guys, and then you kind of have the haves and the have-nots. You want guys either on basically league minimum salary or on long-term extensions. It's these arbitration guys that are trouble. And I think Hester's is a guy we'll certainly look to trade this offseason. Evans, I want to keep. I like Evans a lot. I want to keep Evans. Okoro and Tyndall, those guys are actually due the most in arbitration for us, besides Mizorowski, who's kind of a separate factor. But, two corner outfielders earning this much money, like we could move on from one of them at least. It'll be tough to see which one. I don't know. Will be some shopping around for sure. We're currently waiting scouting reports from our new scout on players that we're interested in trading, so no moves just yet. Mizorowski due $8 million. If we can trade him, we can trade him great. If we can, but we can non-tender him, and that frees up $8 million there as well. But he was great for us, and he was also great for Washington, so hopefully we can find someone who would want to trade for him at $8 million. November 18th is award season. Here are your Gold Glove winners for the American League. That includes Jeremy Okoro, who grabs his second career Gold Glove in left field, also won it in 2034, so he goes back-to-back. He had a nice year. Josh Van Noy also wins, a former Oakland A himself. Just not a hitter, though. Not a hitter. An incredible fielder, not a hitter. And former Oakland A, Jared Jones, still hanging around to win a Gold Glove at the pitcher position for the Texas Rangers. Here's what it looks like in the National League. Ethan Salas keeps winning these. This is his fourth at catcher. I think I've seen Arellano win a few. This is his third at third base. And those Marlins are good. They've got Marco Raya winning one. They've got Mike Neely winning one. They're a good team. Angels closer Hao Z is your American League reliever of the year. Great reliever, unbelievable ratings. They do pay him a lot of money to do that, but still totally get it. Danny Bonanza, though, finishing second. That's exciting for him. That's better than I thought he would finish. Don't get me wrong, he had a good year, but that's still very impressive that he gets first place votes. Mason Miller finished fifth, former Oakland A himself, as a member of the New York Yankees now. Your National League reliever of the year, Devin Boylan, with Juan Garza also receiving 12 first place votes, so this was very much a split decision, but Boylan grabs this award for the second time. Has Garza won it? No, he hasn't, but he is certainly one of the best relievers in the National League. Jeff Grantland finishing third for the New York Mets. Here are your American League Silver Sluggers. We've seen Jackson Holliday win about 1 million of these. He wins another one. He is a great player, blah, 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 blah. Chester Gurton, not surprising, wins one at first base. Tim Schmidt is a new name. Guy just had a completely breakout season at the age of 30 for the catcher position. Good for him. We do grab one with Chris Greer, which is nice. You know you're good when you can have a down year and still win your third career Silver Slugger award. James Wood grabs one in his first year with the Yankees. Brady Harris grabs one in what seems like will be his last year with the Tigers as he reaches free agency. And the National League, it looks like this. Ethan Salas, a lot of Gold Gloves, a lot of Silver Sluggers. He seems to have a dominance over the catcher position in the National League. And I'm seeing a lot of Philadelphia Phillies here. That's including shortstop Jake Kingston, who I believe is the reigning MVP award winner. Yes, he won in 2034. They also have the right fielder Eric McGovern and the designated hitter Joey Evett. The American League Rookie of the Year is pitcher Savion Erkins. We haven't seen pitchers win Rookie of the Year a lot. I think the game really hesitates to do that, but this guy sure had a great season. 164 innings pitched, a 3 ERA, 174 strikeouts. Genjo Uchiyama, who we saw in the draft back in 2032, good rookie season for him, but he will finish as the runner-up, and it shows it takes a lot to get a pitcher to win Rookie of the Year in this, but that's what happened. And Joey Evett, who just grabbed the Silver Slugger DH, also wins the Rookie of the Year award for the Phillies. Your American League Manager of the Year award goes to Gregory Prawn of the Angels. This is the second time he's won that award. They are the reigning World Series champions, and the team they defeated was managed by the National League Manager of the Year, Austin Pettibone of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Your American League Cy Young Award winner is someone who we saw on opening day, I think a couple years ago. That is Joel Demosthein, 27-year-old pitcher for the Baltimore Orioles, with Ciotti finishing second, not able to go back-to-back. In the National League, it is Tripp Jennings of the Mets, who is simply one of, if not the best young pitchers we have seen in this league, in this save so far. An unbelievable season for him. 2.30 ERA, 219 innings pitched. This guy's unbelievable just at the age of 24, already a Cy Young Award winner unanimously. And finally, your American League MVP unanimously is Chester Gurton. No surprises there. I think this will just tell you everything. A 346 average, 420 on base, 209 hits, 54 doubles, 59 home runs, 164 driven. And this guy was he was offense. This is probably the best offensive season we've seen anyone have in this save. Guy is an absolute freak of nature. What's his ARB estimate? First year ARB estimate, I want to see. He's getting 14 million. That is going to continue to climb. Shame on you, Angels, for not extending him. Michael Harris II, at the age of 34, is your MVP winner. This is his second MVP. He also won in 2025, so he's won an MVP 10 years apart. Has that ever happened? I'm going to get, with no other MVPs in between, has that ever happened, I guess I should say. Because, yes, players have won MVPs 10 years apart, but without any in between. Might have to stat head that later if I can. Jake Kingston gets first place votes as well. Tripp Jennings, the pitcher. I should also point out in the American League, we did get Jim Evans, who we acquired at the trade deadline, getting down ballot votes. This guy had a great year. He was really good in Tampa, and then he was phenomenal for us in Oakland. And converting to third base seemed to be all right for him. I really need to keep this guy around. That needs to be an absolute priority. Well, here it is, ladies and gentlemen, the moment we trade away Chris Baker. Chris Baker has been probably our best player throughout this save, at least by WAR. 18.8 WAR in an Oakland A's uniform across 7 seasons. Here's the contract situation for him after activating his option. It's $16 million this year plus $20 million the next year, and his career's just kind of been in decline. Been a 1 WAR player each of the last 2 seasons. Been injured some each of the last 2 seasons. If you look at his career fielding stats, he's gone from a plus center fielder to a pretty minus center fielder. He's over the age of 30 now, and it's just time. And the return for him, his overall trade value, I would say, is not that great. So this is, in some ways a salary dump, although the Phillies, I think, do still view what he does positively. I shopped him around, and the Phillies were the team most interested. We're also going to be trading Juan Bustillos, and this is a interesting one. I just can't make any sense of him. He's 24. His best quality that's projected by far is the BABIP. It's not the avoid Ks, it's the BABIP. He's a line drive hitter, but he still has 25 more points potentially to gain there, and he's 24 years old. And a lot of people say, rely on what OSA is saying, right? Or rely on, for example, the fact that he has a 19 prospect rank, that means something. The game is running simulations and it thinks he's going to be a really good player. The more I just look at him, I think he's probably an average player, he's probably a 2.5 WAR. you know, 110 OPS plus, decent defense and right. I don't know. Like, I'm just not totally sold on him. This is going to basically punt our ability to fulfill the, getting value from international amateurs goal, but got to do what you got to do. And then Philly's had interest in bullpen, so we throw in Steve Forrestal from AAA, who we've had hanging around. We throw in Min Hui Yu, who I didn't necessarily want to trade, but, it is an opportunity to, free up another $3 million, because that would be his ARB estimate, and then Mizorowski, who we are absolutely freeing up because he has an $8 million ARB estimate. As good as a pitcher he is, we can't be paying a reliever $8 million like that. So in return, after all that, we're going to get Butch Martin, who appears to be a pretty good starting pitcher. This is with average scouting accuracy. I didn't initially scout him as an option, but, if we look at the OSA, it looks like that. If we look at past scouting reports when we had higher accuracy from our previous scouts, looks like that. Everything is pretty much as it should be. Had a bit of a down year in 2035, but the contract situation looks like this. And because we need the cash, Philadelphia is willing to cover 65% of it. So we're going to add another arm to the rotation here, and that's going to give us a lot of depth. I think probably Luvano would move to the bullpen and effectively take over the role that Yu was serving, and probably do a better job because Yu was pretty poor. I think Yu will be very good. I think Min Hui Yu will do very well for the Phillies. It's just it's a money thing. It's a budgetary thing. They value him, and we relish the opportunity, even if it's just to give up another $3 or $4 million, because we really need to shed salary given the budget situation. So this is what we're doing. We're going to go ahead and complete this trade. And this will be our second trade. We're going to say goodbye to Jared Forrest, our 2030 first rounder. Came through our system fairly quickly, made his debut in 2032, in fact, and was quite good for us in 2033, but has since fallen off, and the bat just never really developed for him like we wanted to. He has a good eye, but there's really nothing else to say about his bat, and it's never been able to complement what has been just, great defensive ratings, a great personality type as a captain. And unfortunately, he's really probably just more suited as a backup catcher. In fact, his expectation is now to be a bench player. He can't be that for us, mostly because we have him under this contract, right? So I don't know if you'd call that a salary dump because it is a cheap contract, but also don't think he's been a very good catcher for us lately. So we'll have to see about that. Hester's we traded for at the trade deadline. He proceeded to do nothing for us and then get hurt. He is a very good player. And I don't mean to mince words here. Like, he has a 5-WAR season under his belt in 2033. He's obviously a good player, and obviously we'd like to keep him around, but we're looking at a $5 million ARB estimate here. We had to choose ultimately between him and Evans, who we also acquired in the same trade, and I chose Evans because I think Evans is going to be really good for us. So Hester's is going to go in this deal as well. And the third piece is just it's a minor league reliever. It doesn't matter. So who do we get in return? We get Victorian Roussel, who is someone we drafted. We drafted him in the 6th round of the 2028 draft. We traded him to San Francisco. That was a trade where we got Cam Caminiti, most notably. And Roussel, ratings-wise, looks good. Has never really performed and is now ARB eligible. For some reason, I just feel like he needs a change of scenery, and we can make it work for him. And given that he is lefty with 65 outfield range, I think he is a good platoon partner for Cam Meyer moving forward in center field with Chris Baker now leaving the club. Catcher Juan Galindo will become our starting catcher, basically. They have Steve Young, who was also in that trade, who was also someone we drafted. And we're going to get Galindo because, he had 2 WAR in 46 games last season. He's got a good contact hitter, and he's still a pretty good defender. And personality class is spark plug, and he's, just over a year of service time. I'm excited about this. I mean, if you just look at the difference between Galindo and Forrest last year in terms of WAR, I mean, that could have been the difference between making the playoffs and not, And then Josh Cork will come in to hopefully help out the bullpen. He doesn't have any options, I believe, but hopefully he can help us out in the bullpen. Kind of a checkered history in terms of his major league performances, a career 4.88 ERA, but the ratings look good to me, and I would just like to give him a chance in the bullpen there. So that's going to be Josh Cork, kind of a throw-in, but this is the deal we're going to make. We have our replacement for Baker, and we have our replacement for Forrest. After making those trades, we've gone ahead and bypassed arbitration with our remaining arbitration-eligible players that we wanted to tender a contract. Those were Tyndall, Okoro, and Jim Evans. Now that we're past arbitration, it is time for free agency. These are the CPU-generated fictional international free agents entering the market, the highlight of which is definitely Eiji Kawashima, a Japanese third baseman. He's 31 years old, big power, nicknamed Godzilla, just like Hideki Matsui was. And then in terms of major leaguers filing for free agency, Emmanuel Clase is one of them, and I just want to point him out here. He's basically, the second best reliever of all time in this simulation. Like, he's probably neck and neck with Trevor Hoffman. I'd probably take him over Hoffman, to be honest with you. An unbelievable career for him, and he is still looking for more. And didn't he just win? Yeah, he just won the World Series with the Angels, so monster career for him. Also, Chris Pereira, also of the Angels, also a reliever, also a former Oakland A hitting free agency, as well as Cam Collier. In terms of the former Oakland A universe, we are seeing our first fictional players start to hit free agency as well. That includes Quentin Young, who's been a well-rounded shortstop for the Astros, as well as Brady Harris, the all-time great already center fielder for the Detroit Tigers. Here's what his career looks like so far. Stumbled a little bit in 2034. He is fragile, but what's funny is his contract demand is $40 million. And the reason that's funny is because he was earning $43 million in his final year of ARB. So that's kind of crazy to think about. But of course, he's probably looking for that for 12 years. December 23rd, day of the Rule 5 draft, and we have a storyline. We haven't really seen a storyline like this for one of our players. Maybe the only thing would be like a funny off-the-field injury, but this is what is known in the OOTP community as the infamous Guru. And what's funny is his last name is Hit Me Hard. But Mike Bensavengo has announced that he will fly to India to visit the Guru. And there's a variety of outcomes that can happen here. But one of them is retirement. He will have some sort of spiritual enlightenment and decide that he's no longer interested in playing baseball. I wouldn't like that to happen necessarily. I think he has a role to play on this team coming into the season as sort of a platoon option within the infield versus left-handed pitching, whereas Hungo versus right-handed pitching. So I don't necessarily want that to happen. He was good for us in 2034, bad for us in 2035. But I would hate if he had some sort of spiritual enlightenment. But you know what? This is part of the game. I didn't turn off those storylines, so that's on me. We'll have to see what he says once he plans to talk to reporters once he returns and shares his experience with the Guru. January 1st, 2036, Mike Bensavengo has returned from his trip to India, and it appears that baseball is not as much a priority in his life anymore, so I think this may have a negative effect on his performance going forward. And as a result, I've taken a look at Cutter Coffee on the free agency market. We have submitted an offer for him. He could serve a similar role, being a middle infielder who will face primarily left-handed pitching. We also had the Rule 5 draft a few days ago, and I did make a selection that is Akiyoshi Asano, a 27-year-old Japanese reliever. And we didn't have anyone taken from us, but we took him from Boston. Nobody made the Hall of Fame this year, and Buster Posey even got dropped off the ballot after 10 years, which is not going to happen. He will certainly be voted in by the writers in real life. Eventually, I don't know if it'll be first ballot or not. But Adam Wainwright came close at 74.2%. January 15th means the international amateur signing window has opened. Here are the 10 players that my new scout, Anderson Fortuna, has been looking at. And this is another one of those classes where we're going to put all our eggs in one basket. The best player available, without a doubt, is Ernesto Oyola, a Dutch right-handed pitcher. This guy already, ratings-wise, at the age of 16, is very developed for a 16-year-old. Like, he could probably hold his own in rookie ball right away. But more importantly, he's just got great, just outstanding, projected ratings, including 70 home run allowed and 70 control, which are probably the two most important, stats for a starting pitcher to have. So we're just going to go ahead and offer him the max because, the whole league is very interested, and I think he has the highest demand out of any of these guys. So there's going to be a bidding war. I'm going to come out on top of that bidding war simply by giving him the max possible offer of $5.7 million. Cutter Coffee has signed with us. It is a minor league deal that would turn into a major league deal worth $2.2 million. I don't know if he'll make the roster within those first 30 days of the regular season. He may very well end up electing free agency if he doesn't, but we're looking at other options to fill this Mike Bencivengo role as well via trade, because we still have 2 trades remaining. And Ernesto Ulloa has inked a deal with us as well. I got excited about him just because you don't normally see starting pitching prospects on the international amateur market who are that good. Those are more rare. You get a lot of position players, a lot of outfielders, it seems like in particular, but a starting pitcher of his caliber, more likely to be acquired like as a high school arm at the top of the draft. We're just lucky to get him in a situation where we can bid against other teams. We've made an offer for catcher Chris Brandt as well, just because he bats left-handed, and maybe that would complement Galindo, who bats right-handed. Chris Brandt has primarily played for the Braves. Here are his stats in the majors. They're not particularly good, but I just thought maybe he'd be an interesting guy to have. No commitment here just yet. It turns into a major league deal if he makes the team within 30 days. All right, I've put together my 3rd trade of the offseason. It's going to be with the Boston Red Sox. I didn't like Mike Bencivengo's guru visit. I would like baseball to be a priority for him. We're going to move on from him. We have, Cutter Coffee now ready to serve that role, and I think he'll serve that role well. We also have Jesus Guevara, who's a guy we drafted on a minor league deal in free agency. I think Bencivengo is expendable. The best prospects we're going to move in this deal are Eli Gross, who was our 2034 second rounder. Honestly, our pitching is in a really good place in terms of the minor league system. We've got a lot of good pitchers down here, and, he's not in the top 5 for me. He'd probably be like the 6th or 7th best pitching prospect we have. Actually, with the recent international amateur signing, maybe a little bit lower than that. Euro Pruitt is a guy who I like, 2033 7th rounder. His main appeal here is the 55 avoid Ks and 70 power potential. That is a combo that can lead to a lot of home runs. No doubt about that. That can lead to a lot of home runs, but the rest leaves much to be desired, so I'm willing to part with him in this circumstance. We're going to receive reliever Bob Morlock, who has less than a year of service time, just under a year, in fact, and hasn't really put together good numbers in his first stint in the big leagues with Boston, but the ratings look decent here, and if the stuff can develop further, then yes, this could be a good reliever indeed. I like the expectation is for him to be a reliever. He's not one of those guys that's like so fringy yet is begging you, put me in the rotation or I'm going to be mad. He can be a reliever for us. And then the guy we're also going to get is Sergio Natal, who is a Dominican third baseman who they signed for $3.8 million last winter. And you get probably like bug eyes seeing these statistics right here, like, oh wow, what a steal. OSA feels a little bit differently, but either way, I mean, a good player, right? A really good player, a good prospect to get. He's only 17, so there's, a long way to go, but I think, when you can trade some of these like lower floor guys for a higher upside guy in this scenario, I think it makes sense for us, and Kevin Cusimano's been just a good depth piece for us. We acquired him in a trade with Kansas City a couple years ago, but I don't really see him as a big leaguer necessarily. The void Ks and the fact that the power hasn't developed beyond a 50, I'm okay. He's a great AA or AAA catcher. He's not really a great big league catcher for me. So we're going to go ahead and make this trade. Our assistant GM is ecstatic about it. We're going to get Bob Morlock and Sergio Natal. January 28th, in the lead up to spring training, we've also signed Vance Honeycutt to one of those, what's it called, like a split deal or something like that. Anyways, it turns into a major league deal if he makes the major league roster within 30 days. Just felt like we needed just a glove-first center fielder, a true glove-first center fielder, and he can serve that role. He'll return back to the team, having last played for us in 2033. We are here at Spring Training 2036. After a rather disappointing 2035 season, we are out for revenge, and that starts here. We've got 40 players in spring training as we pare down to the final 26-man roster at the end of it. And I will say, there's a lot more just open competition in general on this team. I think we prioritized depth throughout this offseason, and so there's going to be a lot of cases where, there are certain position battles and certain battles for platoon spots and all of that, and that's going to have to be taken into account. So it's not going to be as cut and dry a roster as it has been, I think, in the past few years. I will point out that this is everyone on the 40-man roster plus everyone who is signed to those split deals, and one player on the 40-man roster includes Mr. Sincere Kapstalk, who was Rule 5 eligible, and I decided to add him. So not necessarily competing for a spot in the big leagues just yet, but certainly a case where you have to celebrate at least a guy making the 40-man roster, right? So that's what we've got going on. I'm looking forward to all of that. But let's get through the spring training, fingers crossed, without any major injuries. February 27th, we have a spring training injury, and it is to Bob Morlock, who we just traded for like 2 minutes ago. This is radial nerve elbow decompression. It's a 4-month injury, so we will add him to the 60-day injured list, and that'll make the outlook of the bullpen a little bit more clear. We do have our results back from the player development lab. Tyler Pitzer's strength and conditioning program, no improvement there. Steve DeBono, we worked on the 2-strike approach, no improvement, but he developed to his maxed out 45 anyways, so that's fine. Ian Kampmeyer, no improvement in gap power, but he got close to his max. He's now at a 70 out of a 75 potential, so no worries there either. David Luvano was able to increase his velocity. That's good. That increases his stuff. As a reliever, he's now a 60 with a 70 potential in that area. Started for us last year, expects to start for us this year. We're going to have him in the bullpen just because I think our bullpen could probably use more help than our rotation with the acquisitions of Martin and Medina within the last year. And then Reito Hill, who's one of our prospects, pitching prospects, was able to improve his control from a 35 to a 40. That's good just because I think it would have prevented him from moving quickly through the minors, and that's not going to be as much an issue for him now. I also chucked Ben Edmondson in there, and he was also able to improve his control. This is our 20-35 second rounder, and this is what I was talking about when I said we've got pretty good pitching prospects in the system right now, better than it's been for the last few years. Our final trade of this offseason is kind of a big one. We're going to be getting some good young pieces that give us roster flexibility, and that's kind of the name of the game for us this year. Nothing that we do right now is really set in stone. We're going to have a lot of mixing and matching throughout the season, and that's kind of exciting. We're going to find the guys that work for us, and we're going to play them, and the guys that don't work for us, they're going to get demoted to AAA, they're going to get waived in DFA, or they're going to get traded. Simple as that. So we're going to be trading away Albert Alvarado and Quentin Ahernfeld, who are both in the 2034 IFA signing class. I like Ahernfeld in particular a lot, and the game likes him too. Teams seem to value him, but we do have a lot of other, great outfielders who are at a similar level, at a similar age, and so we're going to move on from these guys. If there's one nice thing I can say about letting these guys go, it's that, it was $620 to sign Ahernfeld, and it was $480 to sign Alvarado. Again, they were part of the same class, and so that's only $1.1 million of investment to get these guys in the club in the first place. Cutter Coffey's going to go along here. We are actually a few days past opening day, so his $2.2 million has been triggered. So this is basically just to even out the money, if that makes sense, because he's going to be making $2.2 million. These guys are going to be making $740, so the money doesn't change in this deal. So let's talk about who we're getting. We're getting a second baseman by the name of Rancer Waltz, who has started the season in AAA for reasons kind of unapparent to me. You can see he's had 2-WAR, 3-WAR seasons with the Brewers, albeit with below average hitting. 25 years of age, great defensive second baseman, could play shortstop in a pinch, very contact-oriented, just the kind of guy we need to complement Liddell Hungo in a platoon. So that's, basically taking the Cutter Coffey role, right? Jaheim Cephas is their closer. He's young. He had a 1.91 ERA last year. We wanted to add an impact reliever, and I think this is our chance to do it. Only problem is he's another lefty. That may cause me to, have to reshuffle some things a little bit. And then Jesus Perales is an outfielder for them with 65 outfield range. Also somewhat contact-oriented with the 60 avoid Ks. He's bounced around the big league some. He's in his last option year in AAA right now. I think he can complement Roussel while we send Kampmeyer back to AAA, and we'll see what we have with Kampmeyer. Kampmeyer, with the 60 outfield range versus Perales, the 65. So Kampmeyer maybe, long-term we move on from Tyndall or Okoro or those guys hit free agency or whatever, and then that's Kampmeyer coming into a corner spot, right? But I don't know if I'm ready for him to be a center fielder with 60 outfield range. We like a 65 preferably. Couple other guys in this deal. Jesus Archuleta is a third base prospect from the Dominican. He was a scouting discovery for them last October. I like the high work ethic, so we'll go for him. And then Ben Astorga is a draft pick for them from 2031, a reliever prospect throw-in. And we're going to go ahead and make this trade. So with those moves in mind, we have gone ahead and DFA'd Doug Starr. He has 3 days left until we can reassign him to the minors. We'll see if he gets claimed or not. It hasn't happened yet. And if we can get him back in AAA, great. If someone else claims him, he did a good job as our fourth outfielder in 2035, and we appreciate that. We also returned the Rule 5 guy back to Boston, so he didn't end up making the opening day roster. So here's how we will line up on opening day at least. A lot of potential for shakeup here, but we're going to have Brendan Tyndall leading off just as he did last year. He had a career year with us in his first year with Oakland. Guy was brilliant, so he will lead off for us. Greer will DH. Nokoro will play left field. Those guys are our 2 and 3 hitters, respectively. Jim Evans is our cleanup guy. He was awesome after we traded for him at the trade deadline. Prince Ardley, first base, same story as Jim Evans. We need these 2 guys to keep on hitting. In center field against right-handed pitching, we have Roussel, who you'll recall is the guy we traded for, and actually a guy who we drafted back in the 6th round of 2028. Traded him to the Giants. Now he's back, and he will play center against right-handed pitching, while Perales, who just was acquired from Milwaukee, will play versus left-handed pitching, as will Rancer Waltz at second base versus Hungo. So those are the 2 platoons. Steve DeBona, your shortstop, batting 7th against righties, 6th against lefties, and then Galindo, the new catcher, batting 8th versus lefties and 9th versus righties. Here's how our rotation looks like. We're going to have Mike Drake pitching on opening day, followed by Martin and Medina. These are 2 pitchers with great ratings and some team control that we've acquired over the last year or so in game. And we got Medina at the trade deadline and Martin during the offseason, and they're both young and they both have good ratings. Robbie Spector will be our number 4. He led the team in actually a lot of categories last year, 188 innings pitched and 30 starts. And then I decided to put Luvano at the 5. Originally, I planned to have him in the bullpen. I think his stuff would certainly play up very well in the bullpen, but he got a nice result from the development lab, and I just didn't feel right putting him in the bullpen considering his 3.89 ERA was best on the team last year. Our rotation really struggled last year. Our rotation was probably the weakest part of the team. So the part that's probably a head-scratcher is seeing Tyler Pitzer in the bullpen, and this actually has sort of a 2-pronged effect that could help us. First of all, I think he's going to help us in the bullpen, right? We needed some bullpen help, and I think he can help us in sort of this stopper/setup role. His stuff ticks up in the bullpen to a 60. He will be a very good reliever. He's got 3 different pitches, so, obviously that's like a good thing. The problem is, of course, he is making $25 million, and he expects to be in the starting rotation. In fact, his contract promised that he would be in the starting rotation, and because of that, he would be willing to now to waive his no-trade clause to about 10 teams, it appears, maybe 10 or 15 teams. That's not something I'm looking to do right away. That may be something for the end of the year, because, again, I think he can help us. I want him to help us in the bullpen now, and then, hopefully win a World Series this year, and then we can think about dumping him, But Tyler Pitzer's going to start the season in the bullpen. If there's any sort of injury here, I'll slide him back over to the rotation, no problem. But, his 4.54 ERA wasn't great last year, and I kind of knew that this wasn't a great decision when I signed him. Like, the comp pick would have been a much easier route to go, but I was just a little bit of a sensitive boy, and I love me some Tyler Pitzer. Guadanza and Cephas are the other 2 stoppers. That allows Colt Watts to move to middle relief, which I like a lot. I think he should be great there. Cork, Britton, Ward Sweetapple makes this team. He is out of options, so if he struggles, he will have to be waived and DFA'd. And then I want to talk about Danny Mills real quick in long relief. He's sort of the replacement for Pete Barker, and this is a guy we traded for with Kansas City back in 2033. And he absolutely tore up AAA last year in 2035, 6.2 F4, definitely deserving of it. Not the greatest stuff in the world, but he has the movement and the control to make things work. So Danny Mills makes this team out of spring training. He's a guy who I could have traded many a times, kind of like Spector. Spector was kind of similar in that regard, but now is his time to shine, starting off in the bullpen. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that offseason. It was one doozy of an offseason, and it was hard to say goodbye, particularly to Chris Baker, but also guys like Jared Forrest as well, and Juan Bustillos, who we were developing over many years. But even though we said goodbye to a lot of talent, I think we brought in a lot of talent into the team. I like where we're at, and I'm hoping that we can definitely compete again in 2036 coming up next.